Bitch is a Bad Word podcast is for informational purposes only and reflects the opinions of the host and guests. Please take care of your emotional well-being while listening. We do not endorse third-party views and are not liable for any defamatory claims. Listeners should conduct their own research and consult professionals before making decisions. Caliber Studios has not independently verified the information you're about to hear. Welcome back to this episode of Bitch is a Bad Word. We have your new bestie joining us, Amy Polacko. She is the author of Framed. You are a journalist and a woman's advocate. Welcome to Bitch is a Bad Word.
Thank you so much. And I am the co-author of Framed. So I wrote it with Dr. Christine Cocciola, who's a coercive control expert.
And another baddie. We love her.
Right, exactly.
So I want to kind of dive right into it. And I love the title of the book, Framed. And, what inspired that title?
Well, I think that she and I both see this in our work every single day, where women are set up in the family court system. And we know that most people don't realize this is happening. So we wrote this book to shock people who have no idea, and also to validate those going through it, many of whom have been on your great podcast I've heard before, right? And lastly, we want to add to this movement for change. So there were three main reasons we did it, and we thought that that word just summed it up perfectly. Of course, the subtitle is Women in the Family Court Underworld. And we also put on the cover, I should show you here,
Yes.
Know the Abuser's Playbook. And our publishing company had said, I don't know if you need to put that there. And we both said, oh, yes, we do. Because our peeps know what this means, right? Or if you don't know what this means, we're going to talk about this today. What is the Abuser's Playbook? It's really, really important.
It's such an important term. I've said it on this show, and I say it in the way like I say most things, just sort of like raw and unfiltered. But I'm like, what is this? It feels like the abusers have this like dirty magazine that they all pass around between each other, like an old like Playboy book mag that like, because every person, it's like they are carbon copies of each other. And you speak to one victim, her abuser is, the exact is the next one and the next one and the next one. So when you're in your practice, is this what you see also? Just kind of conveyor belts of similar behaviors?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I was just talking to a coaching client this morning where we often see a metamorphosis. And I'm not saying that these guys were great and perfect in the beginning, but they seemed reasonable maybe and ready to negotiate a little bit until they get talking to other men on Lord knows what Facebook groups, reading things, talking to a buddy who's like, don't give her this, she's a bitch, you shouldn't pay her anything, reduce your income so you don't have to pay her anything, go for full custody, file an ex parte motion, emergency motion, all these things we see. So this has been a movement for decades, and they're good at it. I'm going to be honest. I hate to say that, but it's the truth.
Well, you need to say it because we need to educate women and anyone going through this at the beginning that, the same man who wouldn't give you 10 minutes to take a shower when the baby was born is the same man that's going to ask for full custody and claim that you're crazy and unfit. And it's like, and even their lawyers are, I've personally experienced it. The lawyers are advising them on this, this play. And what's interesting is what I'm hearing is they're framing it as like, well, they're just words. And so I'm just going to say she's crazy so I don't have to pay her the money. Then they'll flip the narrative on you and say, well, you're just going after the money. You're only claiming this abuse because you want more. And you see this, right? And like, how many times are victims silenced to not talk about the abuse because it makes their case look unhinged?
Well, first of all, abusers find attorneys like them, right? Somebody who's maybe sees dollar signs and is going to do unethical things that they know are wrong just because they're getting a lot of money. They see anger and they see, oh, I'm going to make a lot on this case, right? And yes, we have attorneys who say to women, which is so outrageous, don't bring up the A word, don't bring up abuse. And look, there is some validity to that we know that Joan Mayer's study shows that when women report abuse in custody cases, they're believed only 41% of the time. So oftentimes attorneys will say, oh, the judge doesn't like if you bring that up. Don't bring that up. Let's not go there. Let's not bring up the abuse.
Which is, let's unpack that for a second. A woman's coming out of she's made a brave, life-altering decision. And she has no idea what's on the other side of that decision yet. If you're listening, you're still in the abusive relationship, you're not sure what to do. I always warn women, it's not an easy road. It's full of bumps and pavements and nails, whatever. It's not going to be easy, but it's worth it. You need to understand what you're going into. So this woman's coming out. She finds an attorney. I mean, most likely they're not going to be trauma informed. And they're like, you know what? They've got the relationship. The attorney's got the relationship with the judge, the other lawyer. Everybody's they're in there every day. If you ever sit for 5 minutes in a family courtroom before it all starts, everyone's like, hey, Bob, hey, Joe. I was fighting for my kids in a very bad situation. And the judge opens up with happy Friday. I'm like, what? Where are we? At Starbucks? No, this is not a happy day for most people. So when a lawyer comes in and says, don't talk about it, the judge doesn't want to hear it, you're just going to muddy the waters. How many times do women say, okay, I guess I got to listen to my lawyer?
I think too often. I think women are bullied all the time. I have current clients. One was bullied into a settlement. One is being bullied right now. I've had attorneys admit to me that women are bullied in the system. So, and also I think I'm big on this, Lindsay, is that women have to be the CEO of their own divorce, right? Because I made these mistakes. I'm on a mission to make sure women don't make the mistakes I did. I hired an attorney. I thought, okay, they've got my back. I can relax a little bit. You can't. I'm sorry, but you can't. You know your case better than anybody. You have to be the one who says, I do want to bring this up, or I do think this is important. I mean, look, you have to weigh that strategically. But to your point about the whole boys club, which, by the way, many women are so desperate to be a part of that they sell other women down the river to be part of the patriarchy. I've seen it happen in family court, and I write about it in our book in my introduction that I had a retired judge who was our mediator in a post-divorce situation bragging about how much money she was making to me. Not to me, actually, to my attorney. And they were just, shooting the you-know-what. And I said to my attorney later, that was so insane. And he was unmoved. He was not miffed one bit because this is what they do, right? He was like, oh, that was nothing. I'm like, what?
Not only is it insane, it's so insensitive because most likely you're going to if you're on the other side of the table of somebody like this, you're getting screwed.
Right.
And the money isn't going to be found, or the accusations are going to be flying in your face. And it's appalling to hear how insensitive they can be. And then they're just I love that, be the CEO of your divorce, because you do need to be able. Made the same mistake. I sat there and I was like, I've never done this. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm counting on them to know what they're doing because I'm paying them so much money. And when I had to get to the nitty gritty of it, and I was like, well, I left because of abuse. They're like, oh, she said it. She said the A word. Let's just keep that. Can we just keep that to ourselves?
Well, that same mediator asked me why I have to call myself a victim, right? And so they all feel this way, or many, I can't say all, many do feel this way. They have this predisposed view of women. We're manipulators, we're liars, we're hysterical and hell-bent on revenge. But to your point of the confusion and overwhelm, Lindsay, that's why I became a divorce coach. I made mistakes. I thought if somebody had told me what this family court was all about, or how I should do this or not do that, or don't give in or stand my ground here, wow, it would have changed everything for me, and I would have saved a whole lot of money. And I just have to give a plug for divorce coaches. It's not just me. There are many out there. We actually save our clients money. And people don't realize that. They often think, well, how can I have a divorce coach that's a luxury on top of an attorney? It's like, no, please come to us before you hire one. I just had a woman who's 150,000 into a divorce, can't even get an answer from her attorney. It's like, I'm not saying that we're right 100% of the time, but we can guide you to vet these attorneys and what process is right for you and reduce the number of hours you have to pay them, right?
Right, which is huge. And again, going back to the woman who's just left and she's has no idea what's on the other side of this, and she's also experiencing trauma. You may be living in a hotel or not in your home or in a car, who knows what you're living in. And you're like, I believed that the family court, it would just all work out in family court. Or like, I didn't even, I'll be honest, didn't even call it family court. I just said, oh, it's all going to work out in court. And that was nowhere close to the truth of like the reality. But if they come to someone, if I would have had to come to you, I probably wouldn't have gotten the lawyer that I got initially anyway. But what I found is because I was going through trauma, I was like sending my lawyer a lot of emails that were probably not necessary. And then I'm like paying $100 billion an hour for him to like sift through my emotional freaking garbage.
That's exactly right. I'm not saying it was garbage. I want to validate for you it was not garbage. And look, as coaches, we get into that emotional stuff. And I often say that when clients get that first bill, right, from your attorney, it is like sticker shock because you're like, wait a minute, I just sent a quick email about this and I got charged $1,000. And then I asked him one clarification on the phone and I got charged another $1,000. That's exactly true. I have a lawyer friend who said to me years ago, Amy, there's 3 parts of divorce: financial, legal, and emotional. And emotional is the most important part because you've got to get that under control to make the right strategic decisions legally and financially. Oh, I look back, Lindsay, I made some bad ones because I was wrapped up in emotion and I didn't have anybody to, kind of slap me upside the head maybe and say, wait a second, think about this. This is going to have ramifications for decades or your lifetime, right? And
Yeah.
everybody needs that person, I think.
No, it's super important for victims, especially because you need you need someone to even help you identify that you are in an abusive relationship. I mean, by the time you leave, you know it, but I don't even know that you feel it or you want to believe it, or you're just like, I can't even understand what I'm going through. So have somebody like you to say, okay, take a breath. We're going to work through this. These are the 3 parts of divorce, and I'm going to help you make the right choices, and don't use your lawyer as your therapist because that's really expensive.
Exactly. And I think I'm validating for a lot of women that this is abuse. In particular, I find myself saying this is coercive control. I live in Connecticut. I'm in an area where there are a lot of executives, right? And stay-at-home moms, a lot of financial abuse. And begging for money to go to Starbucks with your friend or to pay Bobby's hockey camp fee, that's financial abuse. It's about power and control. And I think we're using that term more and more, right? I know Dr. Christine Cocchiola uses it, is at the forefront of that. We're talking about it more, which I think is important because we've had this violent incident model that says you have to have a black eye or a broken bone or a bruise to be abused. And I think there have been so many great things. I remember I wrote an article for Ms. about that Netflix series Made. Do you remember that? Where she's sitting there and the social worker is saying to her, you realize this is abuse. And she's like, but he doesn't hit me, right?
Yeah.
It was powerful.
It's super powerful because here's what happens often. If you do have the bruises or you were hit, chances of you reporting it while you're still in the relationship are very low. So once that, or even documenting it or being afraid to take a picture, I was like, I was afraid to take pictures of things. Like, what if he finds the picture? Like, what if I kind of look like I'm stacking a case against him? Because I was still like brainwashed. I was in the relationship of like the emotional abuse was real. So I was like, well, he didn't mean to do that. Or maybe I made him do that, or whatever things that you think about. So there was times where I didn't document certain things. I was afraid, well, what if he finds this? He's going to be even more upset that I've like taken a picture. I set up I set up a second email address that, thank God I did, because then I started documenting things and like putting it in another email address, which I recommend our besties to do. Just have something where nobody knows about it and just put it away. But you don't talk about it. You don't document it. So then it didn't really happen. And then if the judge or the lawyer is needing to see this proof of like, well, I'm looking at a photograph of a bruise, but where's the police report?
Right.
Like, it doesn't mean it didn't happen. And I'm so tired of this shit because people are like, well, I didn't report it, so it didn't happen. No, it happened. And the emotional abuse that led before even they hit you, because they're not hitting you, as we know, on the first day, is, I think, even worse. And it's harder to identify.
I agree 100%. I had a coaching client who was denied a restraining order. She got a concussion, was hit over the head, had x-rays at the ER and everything. She had gone to a neighboring state to stay with a friend and went to the doctor there. Within a week, applied for the restraining order and was told, "Oh, well, you waited too late. Like if you were so scared, why didn't you do it then?" Well, she fled the home and the state and the area for fear of her life. You know, there's always this double standard for women, right? And it's stacked against you. And I don't say this to depress anyone. We just need to educate people so they know what they're walking into, right? I think
that's the important piece of what the education piece is. Because then if you know what you're dealing with, then you know how to strategize and you know really just how to pull out the emotion and just be like, I'm here on a mission now and I have to get to work. Because that person's not your friend. They're never, like, forget the like idealizing that you're going to co-parent with this person and you're going to have a normal divorce. Once there's abuse of any kind, you no longer fit a normal divorce protocol.
Exactly. And I think mediation can be great when it's possible, but I think people who say, oh, you can mediate everything, or why didn't you just do it amicably, have never dealt with a high conflict spouse. And we don't like to use that term, as you know, high conflict divorce, because that's like saying they're both to blame, right? It's almost like mutual abuse. Like, it's like the Jerry Springer, oh, it's a messy divorce. It's one of those, there's, he said, she said type thing. That's not what it is. It's usually an abuser who's a high conflict spouse and a spouse who just wants to get divorced. That's all.
Right.
Right?
Who just wants to get the hell out of there.
Hi, I'm Sarah Wayne Callies, and I played Dr. Sarah Tancredi on Prison Break.
And I'm Paul Edelstein, and I played Agent Paul Kellerman on Prison Break. Please join us on our rewatch podcast, Prison Breaking, with Sarah and Paul.
We're going to have all kinds of guests and never-before-told stories, so follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can subscribe to our watch party on the link there. We can't wait to see you there.
And follow us on Instagram at Prison Break Podcast. See you there.
And so I want to understand coercive control. We're hearing this word. Most people, if you're listening right now, you have no idea even what we're hearing it everywhere. But what does it actually mean? Break it down to like the lowest common denominator.
It's a pattern of abuse and behavior where someone is exerting power and control over another person. So that can show up as monitoring your devices, right? AirTags, email, phones, limiting your access to resources. And in some cases, it's money, shelter, transportation, food, clothing, which sounds crazy, but does happen. Intimidation, manipulation, gaslighting. I mean, we have seen this recently in the Cassie Diddy case and dynamic, right? When people say, and I wrote an article for HuffPost on this, why didn't she just leave? Well, if you say that, you don't understand the elements of control. And here you have a guy who was had multi-millions and global
one of the most powerful people in the industry,
exactly,
world.
Right? And this can happen in middle class America too. And I think that for years, mothers have been caretakers for children, right? Not always, but we stay home a lot, or we have a flexible schedule. We reduce our income and our earning power for the sake of the family and for the sake of our children. But that puts us in a vulnerable situation. So I see financial abuse as a huge part of coercive control. And it's easy to say leave, but how is she going to pay for a new place, support herself, get the kids, hire an attorney, all these things? I mean, these are things I work with clients on ahead of time to get their ducks in a row. They might be preparing for a year or longer, right?
And if somebody's abusing you financially while you're in the relationship, I swear on the Bible, they're going to do it even more when you've left, because now you're trying to take your power back, and they don't like that either. And the financial abuse, it's I want to talk about it like so loud, because, and I wish there was like another term for it, because I used it in my situation, and he's like, that's not a thing. That's not real. Look at your life. We were like, look how rich we like. Oh, really? Is it financial abuse when you used to fly on a jet to somewhere? And I'm like, maybe. Yeah, actually it is, because then I could, like, you controlled all of that. But I wish there was another way to break it down, to understand that if you're in a relationship, and you have children, and you stopped working, and you stopped your earning potential, and your partner is able to continue to grow their network and their net worth, and you don't, and then they use that to control you, or they restrict any access, or there's like any time you can't see a bank account, or you have to ask for basic like need money, that's abuse. It falls in the dynamic of DV.
It does. It's absolutely abuse. And to add insult to injury, some of those same women are called gold diggers in court. Right?
Yeah.
After you gave up so much, it's hard to quantify. I personally think a lot of what we do, Lindsay, is to help victims, but also to educate the next generation, right? And I think every woman who gets married and decides to stay home should have if it's not a prenuptial agreement, it's a postnuptial agreement, and gets a salary that goes into an account for her. There have been all sorts of estimates, I'm sure you've seen them, where stay-at-home moms do the work of someone earning $184,000. That's probably like a conservative estimate, right? So that money should go into account. There should be things in the postnup that addresses what happens in the event of divorce, because an attorney explained it once, and I thought it was so brilliant. You're not just giving up that income, you're giving up the networking in your field. You're giving up staying on top of the skills in your field. All of these things. It's hard to, and it drives me crazy when these judges and attorneys sometimes, say to women, oh, you have this degree, that degree, you could earn much more. They think that all of these women, after being out of work for 20 years, can go walk into corporate America and make $300,000 to $400,000 or something. It's ludicrous. And then the ageism. They don't even
have the contacts anymore.
Exactly. And the ageism out there. Like, how is that possible? So I think the only way to protect women is, look, you may not think it's romantic to talk about this when you're getting married or when you decide to stay home, but, read these stories. They're cautionary tales. Every one of these women made choices, and I'm not blaming them, because a lot of us have made these choices, right? But in retrospect, they're telling their daughters, honey, have your own career. Don't stay home. Keep your foot in that field, whatever it is.
It's so true. And if you stay home, again, education, if you're staying home, make sure that and I know people are going to be listening and they'll blast off on Instagram like, well, not everybody's rich, or not everybody has this thing, but you need some kind of understanding, and that this is the agreement, and it's changed from when we got married and we were both working, and now I've chosen to I'm staying home for our family. So whatever your family dynamic is, make it work for you. But I love that you said it's not romantic. Let's just have all of the new people getting married, like the younger generation. The Disney culture is dead. Like, stop thinking that your prince will come. Like, just save your damn self. But also have the tough or not even the tough conversation. Have be a baddie to have the conversation with somebody to say, hey, listen, let's get divorced before we get married. Let's figure the divorce out right now, just based on statistics, and just based on, I'm a woman giving up my autonomy. Almost, like, I could potentially give up all my autonomy, for sure, my financial autonomy, but also your emotional and your friends and your network, and you're doing the most important work at home with your family, while the other person gets to continue to just skyrocket.
And here's the thing, if they're a good person and they love you, and they understand that you have trepidation around this, they're going to do it, right? If it makes you feel better, what's the big deal? They want to be sure you're taken care of. And you are sacrificing a lot. I think, I don't need to tell you that our society doesn't recognize enough all the sacrifices we make. And we know that women's income goes down after divorce, right, Lindsay? And men's usually goes up. Why is that? Because we're the ones twisting ourselves into a pretzel, taking care of the kids. Oh, he's got to go on a business trip and suddenly we have to cancel a work thing to pick the kids up at school. We're the ones that often save the day all the time. And we have to be real about it. It does affect our ability to earn an income, where a lot of these guys are able to just have not a care in the world except going to work, coming home. It's like their career takes precedence even in divorce.
Right. Because, well, they're also like, well, I have to pay the child support. So that's important too. Do you think that, like, if you were to give the perfect, and this is all, everybody's situation is different, would you say that a woman should take a settlement versus a monthly, monthly check? Just take a settlement and be done? Or what are your thoughts on protecting a woman's peace and financial stability?
Great question. And I just gave a woman this advice this morning to get a lump sum instead of monthly alimony. Here's why. A lot of my clients are dealing with coercive controllers. And we know that our family court system, the way it operates now, hands abusers the tools to make our lives a living hell. And one of their favorite tactics is delay, 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 or just simply not paying because they think they're above the law. And it takes years and years. I know women who are owed hundreds and hundreds of thousands. So I always say to clients, I'd rather have you have a bird in the hand than two in the tree. And you don't know if you're ever going to get that money again, because they also like to claim that their business, took a downturn. They reduced their hours and all these crazy things happened. And I also don't want them to end up in court. Like, it's expensive and emotionally and physically draining. So even if you take a little less, I think it is better to get a lump sum. You know you have it. You can plan your next chapter, and you don't have to do that every month. I remember that a relative told me to do that in my situation, and I said, you don't understand. He won't do it because he wants that control on a monthly basis, right? So some of them won't. Some of them won't, because they want you to almost be begging for the money. Like, oh, you're late. I need the money. We can't buy food, whatever.
We're late. You're late. Oh God, I've heard stories. I've personally seen it. The check is post-dated. The signature is wrong. The number doesn't match like the handwritten number. I know someone whose ex writes like the shittiest things in the note field, like about her. Like, what? So it's more abuse, more power, more control. That's what I'm hearing. It's power and control. So if you can reduce and minimize their power and control over you, your peace is priceless.
Exactly. I just recently posted on Instagram this photo that literally made me cry when my client sent it to me. It was a blow-up mattress in an empty room in her new place. And she said, my first day of peace. Right. And I had helped her for the past year get ready for this. And she did a brilliant thing I shared with everybody. She started stockpiling things in a storage container. We always say, like, get cash back at the grocery store, get a gift card, whatever. But she started buying like lamps, toaster, stuff. And I think it's great. She had the mattress, she had the bedding, she had everything ready. And I thought it was a really, really great idea.
Oh, that is so smart. What a freaking bad ass move.
Yes, that would be my bestie tip, but I have another too.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to talk about something like what we just said, like what a bestie needs to be doing, or what they can be doing to stealth put things away to prepare for their mass exit. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Bitch is a Bad Word. We have your new bestie joining us, and she is unpacking all of these tools and resources, but also all the big words that that we need to understand what it means and how it affects your life. And Amy, we went into the break with this great story, a great image. We're going to have to share it on our Instagram of the woman with the blow up mattress. And I love that. I've been there. I had a mattress on the floor, but my show is designed to help people make not make the mistakes I made.
Mm-hmm.
So how should somebody, and if they have the financial means, everybody's situation is different, whatever means you have, but how could someone realize, okay, I'm in an abusive relationship. I need to get out. And so I need to make a safety plan. I need to make a plan. What are some things that they can be doing, getting cash back, and, how can they do it safely? And I have the biggest question. Can you make someone understand that they're not stealing from their own family? So a lot of people are like, but I'd be stealing. I'm stealing.
I think that's one of the biggest mistakes we make as women, right? We don't want to rock the boat. We're honest. We're not raised manipulatively,
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we're all so perfect, but for the most part, we're empathic and we're honest. And for some women, they have to get over that. And I think sharing stories, that's why we wrote our book Framed. We hope women read the cautionary tales, because you start to see what I say to many clients. You don't realize while you are treading water here and scared to do anything, he's making 5 moves on the chessboard. And I often tell another story that happened to me is things were south in my marriage, and I knew things were bad. And we had this account with money that we had gotten, and I knew I should go there and withdraw half of it, right? But I was scared. I was like, this is going to cause World War III. I can't rock the boat like this. Oh my gosh. Well, guess what happened? You can probably guess. The day things finally hit the you-know-what, I go to the bank. I will never, ever forget how the clerk said to me, there's nothing there. And I was in disbelief. And she took a piece of paper old school and printed it and pushed it across the counter, and it was a big 0 because he was a step ahead of me. And
he was 5 moves ahead of me.
Yeah, exactly. He was 5 moves ahead of me. And so I learned a big lesson, and I teach my clients that every day, because people will say, or attorneys will say, oh, we'll deal with that later. And they go, you never get it back. So I think to that point, Lindsay, the most important thing is prepare in silence. You are on a mission, your life depends on it, right?
Because it does.
It does, exactly. So you need to get a separate email, a separate phone if you do. Maybe you get things sent to your mom's or friend's email address, right? We have women who read Framed at the library, or have a friend get it in the mail or something like that. So doing all those things, starting to amass financial documents, everything you can. So hard these days with all these, online
Digital
statements, right? And you certainly don't want to show your cards and, say you want a password reset and they get all this authentication stuff. I'm not saying that, but when they're away, go into their office. You've got to become a private investigator, your own, and amassing that, even if you don't know every little thing about that account, there was an account at Citibank, or he has a pension here, or we got something there. Just if you can write that down for your attorney, you're going to be steps ahead. Make copies of tax returns and all of those things, and stockpiling money. That's huge. Like you said, if you have to get cash back at the grocery store, I've known women who've sold things on the QT or done a side hustle that their husband doesn't even know about, right? Start a little thing where he thinks it's just fun money. Oh, I just bought a dress with it. And meanwhile, you're making more money, right? So having that in play is important. Of course, I recommend that someone works with a divorce coach who can keep you on track and help you start to interview attorneys. Even if you don't hire one right away, you're ready when it goes down.
I think it's important to as I'm listening to you and I'm imagining I didn't do any of that. I took the handprints off the wall, which are priceless, but I left the money. And I thought, I don't want to be, I'm stealing. I don't want to be doing this. It's going to work out. Okay. It's not going to work out. It's not. It didn't for me anyway. But what I think we need to make a listener aware of is that you're not doing all this and then staying in the relationship.
Right.
You're doing this because you're leaving the relationship. So it's not when people are I feel like I'm being dishonest, or I feel like I'm being whatever. No, you're it's survival. You're not being sneaky and then, you stay in, you're, doing all this just to see them suffer. You're doing it. This is the exit strategy for a very bad situation you're getting yourself out of.
This is what you have to do to protect yourself. And I think talking to someone like me, or you listening to your podcast, reading these stories, reminds you that you're up against someone who is out to destroy you. I mean, if you reach that point, right? I remember there were times that I vacillated in my marriage and thought about going back. And I remember I would watch certain people on YouTube that would kind of be like that virtual slap across the face. Like, what are you thinking? He's totally gaslighting you. You know, this is what they do, because they're very good at manipulating. And that's why it takes on average 7 times for an abuse victim to leave. It's the resources, but it's also that we get pulled back in because they know our vulnerable points, whether it's the kids or the this or the, you know, the house or the dream of retiring to Florida or Aruba or whatever it was. They will play every card to get you back.
And that's important because remember, we talked about 5 moves ahead. You, your children, and the things you love are now the pawns. They're the chess pieces. They don't look at you or even your children for anything other than how can I, because again, power and control, and they want power and control over everything. Kids, finances, they're going to weaponize all of those to continue to hurt you. And now you're public enemy number 1. Let's be real. It was bad before you left. Now they're like, They're going to try to love bomb you back, and like they're going to say all the right things. But when they finally realize you're leaving, it's like the line in the sand has been drawn, and now they're out to get you.
Right. It's uncanny, right? How they go from, you're the love of my life, we could have a wonderful life together. And then the next moment they're like, war on you. Yeah, you're a bitch. You're awful. I've never loved you. All these things. And to your point, Lindsay, you're right. I always say that we can hide the fact that we don't want the second home or the boat or whatever it is, the car, but we can't hide the fact that we want our children. And they use the children. It's our Achilles heel as moms because, you know, we care about our children. So that's why they weaponize them.
Oh, and it's so sad. It's just traumatic. It's, you know, and that's another reason why you need somebody like you, because then you need to understand, like, because you're in this fight for your life, you're in a fight for your kid's life, in addition to like, and I would say 100%, you know, that other person is sitting there, they don't give 2 shits. They're like, I don't care that you're upset. I don't care. So you need someone like you to sort of be that anchor, emotional anchor for you to say, okay, this is what they're doing. This is just because if you don't know what they're doing, and most people don't, I didn't, you don't know what's happening to you as it's happening, then you're going to start negotiating with them. You're going to start making bad decisions. You're going to start taking deals. You're going to start like prostituting yourself mentally. And, you know, oh, let me just they know you need the cash. So they'll give you like the shiny thing that you want for just a minute with all these like strings attached.
Right. One of the famous things they do is try to say, let's do a DIY divorce, right? Like, we don't need attorneys, honey. We could just sign this paper. Like, you know, they seem like they're so amicable. Like, let's not give our money to these attorneys. It's put in our kids' college accounts. And, you know, they're really just trying to snow you. And, you know, you're right about the advice that people need to process what's going on. I'll take it a step further. One of the reasons I started coaching is I thought nobody really understands how this family court system works. So a woman could inadvertently, innocently say something that could be in a text or email or verbally, and that's twisted around, and she's accused of parental alienation, right? And so that's part of the abuser's playbook. So I always say to clients, like, if he wants to see the kids, you know, make sure everything you text could go in front of a judge that shows you are facilitating this relationship, because I've seen too many women become demonized, right? Oh, men's rights love to use this term parental alienation. We really don't. But they say she's turning the kids against me. And if someone is walking into divorce and family court and has no idea this could happen, they could be making a whole case against themselves accidentally. Do you know what I mean?
Accidentally. Yeah. And because you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And so you're going into this and you're responding to text messages like you normally did. They're provoking you and they're saying all sorts of shit that you want to respond to. And then you look unhinged and you look like you're getting in the way of things. Is there a way though too, like once you're out of it, like how much contact can you limit? I mean, you've got to be able to go to a place where you can protect your peace, but is this all part of like somebody like you would help make the right parenting plan that was the Bible, rock solid, and was very like I've never seen, like I had the most vague parenting plan. Like one of the stipulations was like the other parent must provide a shelter that the requirements were only like running water. Like what? Okay. But I didn't know is that the parenting plan is the Bible. So there's ways that you can help organize a parenting plan for a woman so that she can get her peace protected and she's not looking like she's causing problems or alienating.
Yes, I tell clients all the time that I'm not an attorney. I have to say that, right? But I want to look over their agreement because I always find things in areas that should be more specific. And I have one like yours. Mine says that the couple will divide Easter equally. There's no times. I can't tell you how many wars there have been over Easter. And it's been this whole power play grab over and over again. It's ridiculous. No attorney should have let that go. I didn't know any better at the time. Right?
Yeah, of course.
But
yeah.
I think that, look, nothing is perfect. We don't have a crystal ball. We can't guarantee things, but you want to make it so prohibitive for them to break the agreement. Right now, or in the past rather, the way things were written, it was just kind of loosey-goosey. Like, oh, if they have a disagreement, they have to go to mediation. But like, okay, what happens if he doesn't answer about the mediation? What if he doesn't do this and that? So I ended up in court with one of my ex-husbands over vaccinating my son, right? And so, I had reached out to him about mediation. He never answered me. So what happens then? Right. And so then he took me to court for vaccinating my son, though I had attempted to go to mediation multiple times and I had the evidence. But a lot of times there's no teeth in these agreements. Right. And they're left like this loosey-goosey language, which you have to make sure is not there. Another important thing to put in is that if you end up having to go to court because they're not paying child support or they're not living up to their end of the bargain, they should pay your attorney's fees, and not reasonable attorney's fees, all attorney's fees. Because what happens is, and in that case, I had to defend myself with the vaccination. It was ultimately a moot point and nothing happened to me, but I've spent thousands of dollars, right? That I was not reimbursed. So, but this happens all the time on huge scales. And that is a whole nother level of financial abuse where women are being bankrupted by this system, just defending themselves or just trying to get the money that they're entitled to support themselves and their children.
Yeah, their money, not his money.
Exactly.
Their money. That is like, come on. And it's so important. These because you got to think about it. The lawyers are doing this all day, every day, and they're just like, they're ready to get you off their calendar. I mean, well, not really, because they also want to make money off of you, but like they're so when you get that parenting plan, and again, you're coming from a trauma situation, you have no idea, like on paper it seems normal, but I say, like, I was just speaking to a friend last night, I'm like, get that parenting plan back out on the table and go over line by line with a fine-tooth comb of what you would be willing to have to suffer through. That's the reality 5 years from now. Your kids are like in kindergarten. Well, what's that going to look like? And then she was saying, okay, well, like our parenting plan says that I have to respond to Family Wizard within 24 hours. And I was like, yeah, but what? Like, that's too vague, because if you have the kids and he's sending you like he does, they don't care if it's Family Wizard or Talking Parents or your Pony Express, they're going to keep abusing you and driving you nuts. I said to her, if you have the kids with you, there's nothing that he's sending you that's important that needs to be responded to in 24 hours or ever. I mean, like that if you're with the kids. And she's like, no. And she's so struggling right now because she's like, I get the ding that the message is there, and then I have to, like, then I'll respond to it after the kids go to bed at 8, and then I think, oh my God, did I do it within 24 hours? I'm like, look what that's creating just right now. You don't need to, there's nothing he needs to tell you when you have the kids that you need to respond to. But so make that part of the plan, and don't be ridiculous. Like you don't need to talk to him ever. But it's in the, then anyway, my point is that these people, the pathological people, will like laser focus on that one thing. And then they're like, look at you, you're being like alienating. You're not being a cooperative co-parent. You're not answering. And I said, what is it that he's texting you or on the message? Oh, he wants the baseball glove. Okay, well, fuck the baseball glove. He's got like $1 billion. Yeah. He can go buy another baseball glove. He doesn't want the baseball glove. He wants to control you.
Exactly. It's about power and control. And that's what they do. We know that post-separation abuse is real, that it doesn't end in divorce. So I think, like you said, Lindsay, boundaries are absolutely essential. And you have to parallel parent because narcissists counter parent. So I find that when you start thinking like it's just me, I don't have to rely on them for anything, it's a lot easier for you, and not jumping all the time, because that's part of the intimidation, right? Is that if you don't answer me right away, there's going to be consequences, or I'm going to take you to court. And you're right, they will violate so many things in the agreement and think nothing of it, and then one little thing happens, like you went on a trip and you lost cell service, so the kids couldn't call at that moment, and all of a sudden it gets, I've seen this, right, where it's misconstrued as she was keeping me from my children and took them on vacation, and I couldn't talk to them,
I couldn't. Well, let's be honest, they're not talking to the kids, they're spying on you.
Yeah.
They don't
Exactly.
they just want to know what you're doing, like, because they don't want to return the favor when they have the kids. So like, can we just get rid of the phone calls on the non-parenting days? Like, it's just nobody wants it. The kids don't need it. It's just causing more chaos. But okay, so we're hearing steps that we can do. So you're like, if there's any money, what are some things that our besties can just put in the back of their mind of cash grabbing, and if you will, to just be in a better position?
Well, they should start their own account. You can certainly do that. Get any cash where you can to, if you have to get money for a retainer, you're going to need to, right? Credit cards in your name. Not that I want you to have to run up, credit cards, but, anything you can gather yourself. And I also tell people, is there jewelry that's been in your family that's in the house? Like, when they're out for revenge and they're angry that you want to divorce them, they're going to take things like the painting that was your grandmother's that you care about. I'm not saying you can take furniture and things like that, but things that they wouldn't notice, you should safeguard. Absolutely. Give them to a friend or family member. I think that's really important. Anything you can do to start making your own money and having your own income, have your check go to a different place. I know you don't want to raise alarms if it isn't, but any side hustle you can do. Like I said, selling things. I've seen women do all of these things to try to get money.
Okay, it's important. And then I spoke to someone and they let me know if you agree to this. She's like, if you take the money out of the bank account, don't go buy a new car with it, but take half of the money out of the bank account and, put your budget together and even document a budget so that you can justify it in court. And if they make you give the money back or a certain percentage of the money back, it's available. You're not looking like you're stealing.
Right. Well, I think it depends if you're still living there, right? Or if you're in your new place, It really depends. But yeah, you could show that you're using it for living expenses. I mean, you're not going and spending frivolously. I think that one of the most important things, and I actually came up with a proactive playbook for divorce for women, is to crunch those numbers. In so many of these marriages, right, and I was guilty of it too, we kind of think like, well, I'm handling this, and this. He does the bills and the finance and the investments and all that.
You're a
stuff.
kept woman.
Right, exactly. It's kind of like so many of my clients have no idea where the money is,
Yeah.
And so getting into, it may not be fun, but getting into the nitty gritty, where I created a spreadsheet for women where you can crunch, like, what are your expenses now living there? What would they be on your own when you're with that blow up mattress in your own place? Like, even if you haven't found a place, start looking around. What is rent in your area? What could you get? Do you have to stay in the kids' school district? All of those things. Start crunching those numbers. It's really important. And I also came up with a co-parenting expense tracker, because there are so many expenses that if they're not in the agreement, to your point, Lindsay, about it being super specific, guess who pays for it? Moms. You said something about like kids being younger. My son was 4 when I got divorced. He is going to be 17 this month. There's nothing in there about college prep, driver's ed, car, insurance. Guess who paid for driver's ed? Like, you know what I mean? It's if it's not in there, we as the moms, I can tell you 99% of the time we end up covering it, because we want what is basic and necessary for our children. And you know, so you, even though it's such a pain when you're getting divorced to get into all that minutia, like, you'll thank us later, ladies.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, it'll all work out later, or we'll talk about this later. And what's fascinating is that, like, even though these are shared children with this pathological person, they don't give two shits that the kid is wearing old clothes or shoes that look like crap, like, because for some reason in their mind, they think they're hurting you by not providing basic needs for their kids in some way, and knowing you're going to be like, I'm going to buy the new shoes, I'm going to buy the new clothes, and those clothes are never going to come back to your house. Just get used to that. All the old clothes are the ones that they're going to send them back in, and just get used to it, and just like stop caring, and just realize that you're there for your kid. But the other parent, typically we're talking about pathological and abusive people. They don't care. They don't see the value that you, in the way that you see it.
So true. And I think the silver lining for everybody is that, guess what? Your kids know. Without us saying anything, they know that we're the ones who always make it happen, who ride in on the white horse, and you're gonna, you know, if you got to get an extra job to get extra money so that your kid can do whatever it is, play a sport that's expensive because their other parent won't pay, we do it. And they do know that. And I think that's why, you know, not in every case, but in a lot of cases, the moms are the psychological parent for the kids, because they know we'll go to the ends of the earth to make it happen. We're not using them as pawns. We're putting them first, which is ironically what the family court's supposed to do, right? Best interest of the child. But
yeah, today, or with our lawyers, we can get into that later. So I'm going to take another break, and when we come back, I do want to get into like the dirty secrets of the abuser's playbook. And so if you could share a few things with us when we come back.
Sure.
Welcome back to Bitch is a Bad Word. We have Amy Polacko joining us today, and she is telling us all the nitty gritty that we need to know. And let's see your book one more time, and that last line that your publisher didn't want you to talk about. So she's showing, if you're listening, she's pulling up her book. I need you to take a look, Framed. And what is that line? Because it's very important.
It says, know the abuser's playbook.
Okay. What does that mean? It's my first day.
It means that they have a playbook to railroad you and continue abusing you in court. And sadly, the family court system allows them to do this. Whether they're talking to a buddy who went through a divorce, or they're on these, you know, Facebook or Signal chat groups or whatever it is, or watching social media, there is a definite play-by-play that they all seem to use to frame, the title of our book, frame women in these cases. And if you don't know what you're up against, you could be giving them material that they can use against you.
Okay, so what's the tool? What's the trick? Knowing the playbook? Like, can maybe read us some, if you have something.
I was just going to read you. You read my mind. And this, we have many chapters. We have 22 women in this book from the US, the UK, Canada, and Australia. And this story is Michelle's story. She's from the US, and her chapter happens to be named The Abuser's Playbook. I'll just read a few snippets, not the whole thing, but she says, "My name is Michelle and I want a divorce. These are the very words that initiated my living hell. 3 years ago, I was free of debt, naive, and trusting. Now, with over $300,000 in legal fees and deep in personal debt, I'm acutely aware of what can happen in divorce." So she did not realize that when he was reaching out to her, like, oh, let's talk this through and come up with a settlement ourselves, she was going and meeting him, and he kept basically setting her up. She didn't know any better. That's part of the playbook, is that they will turn the tables. It's called DARVO, right? Deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. And in this case, by the way, I just have to say, because this contributor happens to be one of my clients, that she is a high-powered executive in a company we all know, and you'd be shocked, right, that this could happen to someone like this. You know, her husband's name is Jeremy, and she said, "The reason why I couldn't send Jeremy away is he didn't cross the line. We need to move the line. He'd get in my face, spit, threaten me, pull me places, and lock me in a room, but I didn't have bruises, black eyes, or broken bones, so he wasn't arrested. It's time to move the damn line. I had proof of him locking me in a room when he should have been arrested, but the police couldn't arrest him because coercive control is not illegal in my state, and I didn't have an incident of physical violence. Jeremy was stalking me, following me with a GPS tracker, but somehow the police believed him when he said she's abusing me. In one instance, the police came and took me to their station, where I spent an overnight in jail based on Jeremy's claim that I was on drugs and dangerous to him and the children. My husband waved through the window with a sick smile on his face that said, 'I told you so,' when they carted me away. He also called the station repeatedly that night, asking if he could pick me up." I often think of this scene, Lindsay, as like that Jack Nicholson, like The Shining.
Yeah.
The lesson here, this is one part of the playbook. And I've had clients who I've had to say, you know what, if you don't call the police and get a restraining order soon, I can feel it percolating. He's going to do it to you. And we've been right. It was me and her attorney were talking together, and we both had the same alarming thought, and the client did. But in this case, Michelle didn't really know that could happen, right? So she's going over to talk to him thinking, we have children together, we can work this out. And he's setting her up and then calling the police. And so this happens. That's one thing. Mm-hmm. Another is they try to frame you and say you have an alcohol problem, drug problem. I had a client who her husband started videotaping her drinking just socially. And I said, oh no. And she didn't realize. I said, this is a huge red flag. And they were about to go on vacation. And I said, I'm sorry, you can't have a drink on this vacation, because he's trying to posit this narrative, right?
Yeah.
And he's saying things like, I'm so concerned about you, and all these things. So this is what they try to do. Could be mental health things. I mean, who isn't taking something for anxiety these days? But they try to spin it like you're out of control, you're insane, you're unstable, you know, you've been okay to be home with the kids for the past 10, 15 years.
God, yes.
But all of a sudden, you're the crazy lady who can't be with the kids.
Yep.
So if you know these things ahead of time, and we talked about the parental alienation, if you are educated ahead of time, when you start seeing that, you're like, like,
yep,
I know what he's doing here, right?
Yep. Well, and they will lie. Here is the thing. Just get used to the fact that they don't have a moral compass. They lie to get what they want. And it's like you're looking at it from this, you know who they are. You've seen the lies. You've seen the manipulation. You understand it. But to be able to convey that to a judge or a police officer or somebody else of like 10 years, 15 years, 30 years, whatever it is, and summarize it while you are like this, like, oh my God, you need to listen, and you look hysterical. They are sitting there like freaking Zen masters and they look controlled and put together, and you look unhinged. And that's how easy it can happen.
Isn't that the plan though? That's why they poke and poke and poke at us until we blow up, which Mother Teresa would. And then they record you and say you're crazy. And so I work with clients saying, you know, look, the system is not right. I wish I could wave a magic wand, but and change it, but this is the system we're in, and you have to show up as the antithesis of what he's saying, right? You know, I even did a whole Instagram reel about how you should look frumpy in court, right? Like nothing sexy, nothing nice, no jewelry, no nice bags, nothing. Like just
Oh, that's great. Yeah, because they're taking inventory too. The judge doesn't know you. The judge has seen like 60 people before you.
right, and they
Like-
love to spin it that you're a gold digger. And judges don't like, and an attorney said to me recently when I was asking why are we seeing these changes in alimony, there's no lifetime alimony really anymore, is that a lot more judges are kind of like, she should work. Like, you know, I raised my kids at work, like, why isn't she working? So they don't like this idea of, you know, woman sitting around eating bonbons collecting alimony, and he's going to try to portray you that way, right? And so you want to look like the Holly Hobby, I know I'm dating myself with this reference, you know, like mom who's just like, all you care about is your kids, you put nothing into yourself. I joked on this Instagram reel I did that one time because I learned my lesson. I dressed up once for mediation, and boy did it backfire on me, because, you know, people sum you up, and the mediator said, well, look at you. I mean, you could go back to corporate and earn all this, you know. It was like, what? I have
Oh my God.
child who's, you know, who had some developmental delays. I'm bringing to appointment, you know, there was, anyway.
Yeah.
It was, she just looked at how I was dressed. And so when I went into court one time, I just let my hair air dry. It was like kind of crazy. You know, I had no makeup. I wore like the most boring outfit I could possibly find. And, you know, I hate to say it, but that's the reality. They will sum you up in a few seconds. And we know from evidence that they already have this predisposed notion about women, right?
Right. Yeah. And even if it's innocently, like even if they just, because there are some, maybe they've heard the story. There is somebody who is, you know, taking advantage. But for the most people who, like most people don't want to talk about being a victim of abuse if it didn't happen. Why?
Right.
Like you're not doing it. You're not making it up. It's real. It happened. And the lies are real. Like, and it happened in my situation too. Like he was so nice when we were in court, and I'm like, okay, maybe I should just do this. Maybe I should make these deals with him, and I should meet him, and I should have this. And then sure enough, like I went over and met him to have a conversation, and like the day before the hearing, or a couple days before the hearing, and the opening statement that his lawyer made was, Your Honor, she's not afraid of him. She was just at his house last night having sex. Look, here's her on the Ring camera going into his house. I'm like, or, you know, I'm like, wait, what? And I just was I couldn't believe it. And I even said in a text, I said, what the hell? We weren't having sex. Why'd you do that?
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, I didn't know my lawyer. I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize my lawyer was going to do it. But I didn't. And I also didn't realize what was happening at the time.
Right.
The seed was already planted.
Right.
That one statement, even if the lawyer recalled it, the judge has a new
that
thought
you're
of me.
promiscuous. I mean, isn't that what they've tried to do with Cassie, right? Is
Yeah.
that this image, you know?
Yeah.
I never realized that the misogyny was so deep in our society until I experienced family court, to be honest. I think that's where it's really opened my eyes to where it lives. And I wrote an article for Ms. Magazine a couple years ago called Hysterical Women Out for Revenge. We didn't talk about the fact that part of my healing has been, like, I used to be a full-time journalist, and so I've gotten back to writing about these topics for different outlets. And we used a picture of Glenn Close from Fatal Attraction. And, you know, because that's how women are portrayed in family court, right? Oh, she's upset that he's moved on with somebody else. She's out for revenge. Maybe she's making up the abuse because he's leaving her, you know, or something like that.
She's boiling the rabbit.
Yeah, exactly.
Sad but true. It's what's happening. And so you have to educate yourself and understand what you're walking into, and know that it could take a couple months or it could take a couple years, but you're in this situation. You're for a long time if you have kids. I mean, that's just the reality. And so you need to be protected. You need to have your parenting plan like Bibled up, even the most minute details need to be articulated, and you need to understand that they're not friends with you. And they'll do it like that guy. Imagine waving at his wife in jail. And then I'm sure he was like, how bad was it that bad?
Yeah, like he was trying to be
that.
buddy buddies with her after. I mean, it's sick. It's sick.
Like I have a movement, so I don't know if you're listening and you're not seeing this. I've been wearing this lately. And so I have a hat that says MILF. And I love wearing it. I love being a MILF, but my acronym is Mothers in Litigation Forever.
I love it. I need one of those.
Yes, they will be dropping them very soon. But it's like that's the reality. The reality is that you are now a litigator for your life. Like you need to be the CEO, as you said, of your own divorce and your own life, but you also need to be your own litigator. You need to understand that you know best for you and your kids.
And you always have to be thinking that way, even post-divorce, right? Put things in email. Don't do verbal agreement. Like I always say to clients, we're going to prepare for the worst and work for the best, toward the best, right? Because
Perfect.
you've always got to cover yourself. You always got to think, could this go in front of a judge? Or we have an agreement about private school tuition. It just can't be a talk at drop off. It's got to be written out, and you need them to respond. And you can use the excuse, my attorney. My attorney says we have to have a written email exchange of this or whatever.
You need to document. Everything needs to be documented. Be the biggest documenter of all time.
Right.
We're going to take one final break. When we come back, I'm going to ask our new bestie for a tool that she can put in our bestie toolkit. We'll be right back. Well, I love speaking to you. You are just a wealth of knowledge. Your book, Framed, should be on everybody's bookshelf, or your friends or your mother's, or in the library if you need to read it secretly. We're like the underground railroad of domestic abuse, and really helping women get inspired, empowered, and educated. So I appreciate all the work that you're doing for all of the baddies out there, and just really, it's so important what you're doing. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And I would like to ask you, if you had one tool that you could put in our bestie toolkit to help someone right now, what would it be?
I really tell clients to do this, and don't laugh, it may seem a little silly, but no matter where you are in this situation, trying to escape or in the process or even post-divorce, is to write a note to yourself in your notes of your phone. It's your mantra. And I think there's so many times when these abusive types can trigger us, right? We talked about it. They try to poke till you lose it. They're trying to instigate things. We don't want them, even post-divorce, to have this power over your life. And so I really like to have clients write something to themselves, like stay calm. It could say whatever you want it to say, but it could say, stay calm. Or you may think he's winning this battle, you're going to win the war. He wants you to react. Remember, your priority is blah, blah, blah. I just dealt with a client this morning who her priority is getting the house. So she's going to sit through Father's Day and some other family things to play the game to get what she wants, right? And I think that you can't always have a coach right there with you at that moment, or be able to pull up a YouTube video that centers you. So reading something that reminds you that you are the one in control, I think is really, really important, because they win when we react. And I've learned this. I've made the mistakes, guys. So don't, do what I say, not what I do, right? And I think spend 5 minutes doing that, and in a secret place. And you might have to run to a bathroom at a family function and do it, or at a kid's graduation, and read it. And just remember, before you get out of the car where you're going to encounter this person, it just reminds you that you are the CEO of your life, and you control the situation, because they're going to do everything to try to control you. But you truly do have the power.
That, I love that so much. It's so important. And because the game, you have to focus on the long game, and the road is long if you have kids. So this is something, and you find when you work with women, do you hear, one last question I want to ask you, like, do you see, so it's all we know, these patterns, but do you see these moments where like women are like, oh my God, he's being so nice right now. Maybe I should XYZ. Maybe I should. And I'm like, there's a snake in the basket. They're quiet right now.
Yeah. I like that, snake in the basket. Exactly. I look, I have women who contact me in a flurry and it's emergency and they want to meet with me and then they disappear, right? But let me tell you, they almost always come back. And look, if someone can work out something out in a marriage, I'm all for that. But 99% of my clients are dealing with coercive control. And I think about how I was wooed back many times, and I understand it. I have empathy for them. You have to be ready to leave. And I think for women too, we have to be able to put our head on the pillow knowing we did everything to save the family. Sometimes, for our kids, but there reaches a point where you've got to save yourself, right? And only you can decide when you've reached that threshold, right? I always think it's like a switch that's flipped. You can't flip it back once that's happened.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so important. Like, and be prepared. So, Amy, where can our besties find you?
Well, my website is freedomwarrior.info. My coaching practice is called Freedom Warrior for a reason. I believe that we're all warriors, those of us who escape, and freedom and peace are priceless. You can find me on Instagram at Freedom Warrior Tribe. And I should say on my website, there's a page for articles. You can read a lot of the articles I've written for Ms. HuffPost in different places. I wrote a lot on the Catherine Kasanoff case, which we didn't talk about today. But you can, of course, find me on LinkedIn. I have a playbook, proactive playbook for divorce on my website. I also have a full digital course called Divorce Decoded. And I put everything in this, Lindsay, that I didn't know and I wish I had known. So I cover family court warnings, do this in court, this is how you hire an attorney, all these things. So I have women who watch it in secret and they say to me, you know what? Every day I feel like I'm building a muscle. That's something you can do while you're preparing, right? Even you watch a 10-minute thing on, okay, this is what happens to credit card debt. Okay, I get that. All right, I got it. The more confident you are when you head into this, the better your result is going to be, right? And then
amazing.
For our book, it's narcfreepress.com. I mean, it's for sale on Amazon and major sellers, but you can read more about Dr. Cocciola and me and the book at narcfreepress.com.
Amazing.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful for you. I am definitely going to have you back. We have definitely, we didn't even scratch the surface. I just wanted our besties to be able to meet you, hear the things that you're doing, and then we'll have you back and sort of go right into really big, that case and important messages. So I'd love to have you back. I'd also like to invite you into my club.
Yay.
So I have a club and it's called the BFF Club, and there's no initiation fee. There's no hazing. We've been through enough. But it's bitches fighting for freedom. So if you'd like to join, we'd love to have you.
I would love to be a member. I forgot to say, Lindsay, that I do free 15-minute coaching consultations for people. You can book it on my website on the contact page also. But yes, I would be honored to be part of the BFF Club.
Yes, welcome. We're just a big bunch of bitches all being baddies together, and we're just really opening the eyes and the doors for women and lives to be changed and people to not make the mistakes that you and I both made. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much for the work you're doing. We'll drop everything about you in our show notes, and we'll have you back again soon.
I look forward to it. Thank you. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Bitch is a Bad Word, and we will see you next Tuesday, besties. Bye. Bitches being bad.